Hi, this is Ralf Herrmann from OpenType.info, and this is my presentation held at the ATypI conference in 2011. The capital Eszett has been proposed for over 100 years now, and it's currently a very controversial subject in the typographic community. So in this presentation, I'm trying to shed some light on this subject. In this map, we can see countries using the Latin script, and of course, there are a lot of characters in the Latin script, even on top of our basic 26 letters. But there is one unifying principle that is true for all the characters we can see here. And that is that there is always the same amount of lowercase and uppercase characters in the orthography in each of those countries. And this is true for all the countries we can see here, all but two countries, Germany and Austria, where we have 30 lowercase characters, but just 29 uppercase characters. So we have the basic 26 letters, we have the German umlaut characters, and we have a lowercase Eszett, but not a capital version. And if you think about all the Latin characters, and if you imagine them in a table with all the uppercase and lowercase, then it's obvious to see we have a problem here. There is one slot that is not yet filled. And if I talk to people in Germany about this, they might not even be aware of this problem if they are not professional writers or graphic designers or something like that, because we are so used to this situation. But once you explain the problems this causes, then they usually agree that this is something that might be worth fixing. This, however, is not always the case within the typographic community. When I talk to graphic designers and type designers about this, I often get responses like these. So there are some people who even refuse to see that there is a gap, and they refuse to think about the possibility to fill this gap. And for years I keep asking them, why do you say that? What's the reasoning behind your argumentation? And it seems to be there is one major concern, and that's what I'm trying to focus on today in this presentation. It seems to be that some people think they know something about the history of this character, and this history should prevent that it can get an uppercase counterpart. And here we have it in the words of Eric Spiekermann: how can a lowercase ligature become a capital character? And that's of course an interesting question, so in the next couple of minutes I'm trying to explain how something like this can happen, why it happened before with other characters, and why it also needs to happen in this case. So their argumentation goes something like this. They say there are characters and there are ligatures, and if we use the term ligature today, most people think of something like the FI and the FL ligature. And we would use it here in a word like fish, but of course if we said fish in uppercase, we would remove the ligature again, because the purpose of the ligature has been removed as well. And if we say the Eszett character is something similar, then we would use it here in a word like Straße, but if we said that in uppercase, we would split the ligature to whatever it is made of. And if you believe it is made of two S, then this is probably a good way to do it. And so I've heard this argumentation so many times, and if you tell it like this, it might even sound very reasonable at first sight. But this whole argumentation would only be true if the Eszett would belong into this category of ligatures, like the FI and FL ligature. But does it belong here? And the simple answer is no, it does not belong here. And that's not even a matter of opinion. That's a matter of how German orthography defines its characters. So this whole argumentation, it's just wrong. And this is true even though when we look in the past, we can clearly find such a ligature. Here is an example from Palatino from the 16th century. And we can clearly see a long S and a round S, and they are combined for typographic reasons, and of course they wouldn't require an uppercase counterpart. But as you can also see, that's not even German text. German for centuries was written in black letter, And here is where we have to look for the source of the Eszett character. And the use of blackletter is also the one and only reason why we don't have a capital Eszett until today. Because at that time, when the lowercase Eszett evolved, it couldn't appear at the beginning of words, and uppercase only text setting wasn't used at all in blackletter because of the design of the capital characters. So at this time there was no need to create an uppercase version. But of course this has changed. Today we don't use blackletter anymore, we use the Latin script for writing German, and we use uppercase and small caps all the time. So today we have an obvious gap in the German alphabet. And this Roman ligature I've shown before in the Palatino example, this is certainly something we look for today as a design reference. When we design our lowercase Eszett characters, we usually do it this way. But it's unlikely that this is how the Eszett actually came into the German language. It's much more likely that it really developed inside of the blackletter script, and the most obvious idea is that it's actually a combination of a long S and a Z character, and we even call this character today Eszett, which means exactly that. But there were other theories as well. The German typographer Max Bollwage has claimed it's actually a diacritical mark, certain kinds of hooks that were added to the characters, and this became later the Eszett character. Or the German typographer Jan Tschichold, who had claimed it's actually a combination of a long S and a round S even in the blackletter, even though he didn't really prove that in any way other than making a drawing in a book where this looked pretty obvious. So unfortunately today we have to say we don't really know for sure where the Eszett character comes from. But what we do know for sure is what it became over time. And this is what really matters concerning our question of the usefulness of the capital Eszett character. If we look in a dictionary from the 19th century or the early 20th century, when German was still set in blackletter, we can see there were a lot of ligatures in use for writing German. But it's important to know there were two distinct kinds of ligatures. There were typographic ligatures, which are just there to form a better connection between letters, and there were also mandatory ligatures. They represented one sound, and they were used and understood like letters of the alphabet. And we can see that here in an example. Here we have a German word, Wasserschloss, which uses ligatures. And if we would increase the tracking of that word, you can see what must happen. We would remove the typographic ligatures because their purpose is gone, but we would always have to keep the mandatory ligatures because, again, they were at this point already understood as letters of the alphabet. And this continued when German over time was also more and more set in the Latin script again. Then there was the question, how could all these special rules of blackletter writing, how could they be transferred to the Latin script again? And here's what they have done. Most of these special rules and characters were removed, but what they kept was the Eszett, again because it was already understood as a letter with an orthographic function that could not be replaced from the alphabet. And as you can also see, the long S didn't even become part of the official orthography. So how could this be something like an FI ligature if the parts of this ligature aren't even in the orthography anymore? Recently there was an orthographic reform in Germany which also affected the use of the Eszett character. Words which used in Eszett before don't use it anymore, but for the remaining words the purpose of using the Eszett character was even stressed because now the Eszett finally got a distinct phonetic function. So today we can say the evolution of the Eszett from probably a ligature at some point to a full letter of the German alphabet, this evolution is now finally complete. And as a conclusion about this whole ligature argument, yes, there are ligatures which don't require an uppercase counterpart because they just serve a typographic purpose in lowercase text setting. But there were also full letters of the alphabet, which just happens to be derived from a ligature. And the Eszett clearly belongs into this category. And here are some other examples of this category. No one today would question the existence of a W in uppercase and lowercase form just by saying it was a ligature once. This is of course pointless. It's a letter of the alphabet because it serves a purpose in the orthography. Or the OE ligature, which requires a different pronunciation as when O and E are placed separately. So if you think that the W is a full letter of the German alphabet, then the logical consequence is that the same is true for the Eszett character. Because it's not about the history of these characters as a ligature, it's about what role they have in modern German orthography. So what is this function of the Eszett character in the German language? If you don't speak German, you probably don't know this, and even people in Germany don't always know this, because as I have said, the rules have just changed recently. So here we can see 3 German words which show us the 3 ways how we can write S sounds in the German language. The first one is the regular S, it's pronounced Busen. The second one is the double S, which means we have a sharp S sound and a short vowel, so it's pronounced Bussen. And the last one is the Eszett character, and this means we have a sharp S sound, but this time a long vowel, so it's pronounced Busen. So that's pretty obvious. We have 3 different spellings which create 3 different words with 3 different pronunciations. But now watch what happens if we transfer that into uppercase writing. Because we don't have a capital Eszett, now those 2 distinct words actually are written the same. So we have a problem of comprehension. Now we need to guess from the context which word is actually meant here. And we have a problem of pronunciation, because every kid at school today learns to make this distinction between short vowels and long vowels, which is a universal principle of the German language, not just with these S sounds here, but with all consonants. So there's an obvious problem here. And when I explain this to people, some say, okay, this might be true, but every language has exceptions. Readers can just deal with this. But my opinion is, why should we even be required to deal with this? This whole system only made sense in blackletter writing using the blackletter orthography of the 20th century. Today, it doesn't make any sense at all to do it this way. And second of all, it's not just about readers anymore. Surely, an experienced reader might be able to guess the correct spelling and pronunciation from the context. But we are also in the age of electronic communication, where huge amounts of texts are processed every day and indexed, and we look in databases for words and names. And of course, this can only work if the alphabet itself works in the first place. But this is not the case here at the moment, as you can see here, because how should a computer differentiate between different words if they are actually written the same? And what computers are doing at the moment, search engines in the internet as well as desktop applications with search functions, is they usually just ignore this difference, which means I cannot look up one word and exclude the other one. And this is really a problem. And here we can see some common family names in Germany, and on the left you can see how they are distributed among Germany, and as you can see, it's not evenly distributed, and here is where I live, so it's probably not a coincidence that I care so much about this problem, because I was surrounded by it all my life. And it continues with the names of cities. There are hundreds of cities in Germany alone which have an Eszett in the city name. So if you add that up, it means that millions of people in Germany are affected by this when they should perform a simple task as writing down their address. They cannot do that properly using uppercase writing because one character is missing. Of course, we can use the official replacement rules, which at this point are, instead of SZ, use double S in uppercase writing. But once you have it this way, you cannot transfer that back into mixed case, because this kind of writing can stand for two different names. And both of these names are common in Germany. So just think about that. I pick up a German business card, I am German, I see a German name, and I want to write this person an email, and I have no idea how to address this person correctly because I cannot find out how his name is actually spelled. And when these replacement rules were introduced at the beginning of the 20th century, it wasn't even meant as a solution. This wasn't meant to stay. And we can see this here in a statement from the most used dictionary in Germany, which stated in 1919, this must be stopped as soon as a proper letter for the capital SZ has been designed. And so I think it's about time to fulfill this need. And so the obvious and simple solution to all the problems I mentioned is to just fill this slot and create a capital SZ. And on the left you can see some examples of this, which were designed in the 20th century and actually made it into print. But as you know, the capital SZ never became part of the official German orthography. But now is a very good time to achieve this goal, because first of all, now we have digital fonts, so including a new character in a font is not a problem anymore. And since 2008, the capital SZ is also part of Unicode, so encoding this character in fonts and in digital documents is not a problem anymore. And here you can see some modern examples, and at MyFonts alone in the last few years, over 120 type families included this character, so it seems to already catch on. Of course, this kind of writing is not yet part of the official German orthography, but as history proves, the users can still just do it. They can invent a new capital shape if they think there is a need for it, because we have done it before. 120 years ago, the German alphabet was even more incomplete, because there were no capital umlaut characters as well. And with the umlaut characters, it was exactly the same story. They evolved from two lowercase characters which merged together, and over time they were understood as letters of their own. So it didn't make any sense to write the uppercase version separately, so some foundries started to introduce a capital shape for these characters, and the users adopted this, and at one point in time it switched and the capital umlauts were born. And today no one would even think about questioning the existence of capital umlaut characters, not even the people who are against the capital SZ today. So it seems it's really a problem of what we are used to and what we are not used to. And today with the SZ we are here at this point, so the official way of doing it is still in place, but the new and better way of doing it is just about to take off. So just like with the umlaut characters, it would take a couple of years for a transitional period, but after that the German alphabet could work properly like all Latin-based alphabets in the world, and I think that's really worth a try. So my recommendation to type designers is just put it in your fonts, give it a right Unicode value, and then let the German users decide. If they think it is a good idea, they will start to adopt it, and if they don't think it is a good idea, this idea would just go away, and it won't do any harm to have this character in your font. But from what I see, that's not gonna happen. The number of supporters of this idea is growing every day, because as Adam Twadok said here in his quote, because at least today it's the only logical thing to do.